So yesterday we have come across like what exactly the database is all about. So today let's continue with the major topic, like starting with SQL. Okay. So to communicate to database, we will be using SQL. Okay. SQL is a set of commands which we will be writing to communicate with the database, like either for inserting, creating of tables. Okay. So like database is a set of tables. So every table has the data in the form of rows and columns. Okay. So these are the features of SQL. Like SQL can be written in any of the format. This is not a case sensitive. But if we have to try, if we are trying to fetch the data from a database, then it considers the case sensitive. For example, like if I go ahead to the database, this is the UI. So we will be going through this tool, SQL developer, starting from the basics. So don't worry about if you are at the beginner level, what exactly this UI is all about. You can ignore it. We will be going through in detail about this further sessions. Okay. So let's say I have I have my UI tool. So I'm trying to write the code, SQL code, select star from all objects, which will be giving me all the objects, all the tables, views, indexes, synonyms, all the objects, all the tables related information it will be having. So if I try to run this, I'll be fetching the data. So for fetching of this data, it will not consider any type of case sensitive. So you can write in any of the way. Either I can go ahead and write this in the uppercase. It will try to fetch me the same data. If I try to write this in this format, it will fetch me the same data. But if I try to fetch the data present inside this all objects tables, it will consider the case sensitive format. Let's say I'm trying to write where table name, like it's already there. Let me try to copy this, paste it over here, and run this. Oh, so this is a table, sorry. All tables. So it is trying to fetch me the data. So from this, I can go ahead and fetch the data. These are the table names, couple of table names, which has the characters of parameter, like a word of parameter, either it is starting or ending. Okay. Ignore about this. We will be going through much deeper how exactly we will be using select from this table name, where and all. Okay. This command for now, just we will be going through just how we are trying to understand the concept on how it will be case sensitive or not case sensitive. Okay. So let's say here I have given parameter and I'm trying to fetch all the tables which has a name of parameter. Okay. Whatever the table names starting with parameter or ending with parameter or a word which has a parameter. Okay. Now a data has been fetched. So if I try to fetch the data from these parameters, let's say I have a table name $parameter. Okay. Here, if you see, we have a table parameter. So this is not a good stuff. This is just a simple stuff. Okay. Have a table. Let's say I have a table $parameter. I can go ahead and write the table name in the lowercase. It is trying to fetch me the data. So if I try to write in uppercase, it will fetch me the same data. But if I try to fetch the data from this table, from this table, if I try to fetch data, it will consider a case sensitive format. Let's say here I have, these are my column names: number, name, type, value, display value. Okay. So here I have a column name of as name. Okay. If I try to fetch data from this column name, let's say where name is equal to processes, it is fetching me the data. So I have the data. But if I try to fetch data in this uppercase, so earlier we discussed that SQL we can write in, it is not a case sensitive. But if I try to fetch the data in uppercase over here, it is not fetching the data. It is because code, the syntax that you write can be written in any of the format, either in uppercase, lowercase, there is no case sensitive. But if you try to fetch the data, we have to give exact information. Only then the data will be passed. Data will be retrieved from the database. Okay. See. So this is just an example to show whether it is case, how we will be using the database with the SQL commands in the form of like case sensitive or in case sensitive. Okay. So ignore about this command. We will be learning much in the further sessions. So you can just go through the concept as of now, as this introduction or demo for now. And also every command that we end, let's say I'm trying to fetch the data from all tables. So if I have to end my command, let's say this is my query. So usually we call in SQL, Oracle, whatever the command that you write will be called as a query. Okay. Let's say I am trying to run this query. If I ignore this as semicolon, then just see what happens. So command is not properly entered. So what happens is that it is considering this query and this query. Okay. Due to which it is saying that this is a syntax error. Either you have to command, somewhere it is missing out. See, if you see here, SQL command not properly entered. This is what the error message is. So every SQL query, whichever we are running, needs to be end with semicolon. So if it is a single query, we can ignore, like even it will try to fetch data. Let's say I have connected to a new worksheet over here and I'm trying to run the same command. It will fetch me the data. But if there are multiple queries, only then it will give us error message saying that till where the command needs to be processed. So this is where the machine needs to understand. So we have to give a clear information to the machine that till here, run till here. So that I need to fetch the data where name is equal to process. Okay. Or else, let's say if I have to fetch data only all the data whichever has $, parameter. Okay. From this table, whatever the data is present, you just fetch me all the data. Then I'm trying to give it as semicolon over here. So it will fetch entire data. So because it got to know that till here the command is completed. So I have to execute only till here. The rest others I can go ahead and ignore. Okay. So this is what it says about the PPT as well. So to communicate to the Oracle database, SQL is a language. Okay. It is a command-based language. It is not a case sensitive, but if you are trying to fetch the data, whichever there in the database is a case sensitive. Okay. This is what the exact information that has been given here. And every command, if we are trying to end, it will end with semicolon. So every data, like whatever the data that is present in the database needs to be stored as earlier, like yesterday we have discussed, like whatever the data that we are storing in the database needs to be stored in a form of tables. So every table will be having data in the form of rows and columns. So these are the columns. So we will be considering it as a columns, and these are the rows. Okay. This is my row number 1, row number 2. So for any doubts, so if based on this, we can go ahead further. So you can raise your hand. There. Able to hear me, guys? Awake, right? Anyone? Yes, Paul. Sorry. Yes. Go ahead. You can unmute.
Hi, sir. Good morning.
Yeah.
No, sir. Actually, we are hearing you. We are following. But why? Just my question is, you are using Oracle Developer here, right?
Yes.
For communicating to the database.
Yes.
So by this one just be communicate to the Oracle database, or like this one will works for other databases as well.
Mm-hmm. So if you your question is that like what if you are not an Oracle developer?
Yeah. What will be the other tools we can use to communicate to the
Okay,
Oracle?
to communicate with the database. So we have, so as an Oracle developer, in most of the organizations, you will be given an SQL developer tool, this tool. So from my fresher level, I have gone through this tool itself. And apart from this, I have gone through Toad. Toad is also a tool to communicate to the database, which I have seen very few, like out of 10 projects, I have gone through 1 or 2 projects. Apart from this, we can use CLI as well, command line interface. It will be same as the uh, command prompt, like whichever we use in our normal systems. In every system, we have command prompt, right? So here, whatever the database that is been installed, we will be using this, which is I have never seen using this CLI in the organizations apart from the Linux admins. So they will be using mostly. So as an Oracle developer, you should be we should be having all the user interface, so that we don't want to make development complicated. So that is what our main agenda, right? At the end. So we have to make our code as a clear code, so that that code will be used everywhere in the organization. So most of the organization will be giving us SQL developer or Toad. So within this, we can go ahead and write our code, execute our code, and fetch the data, and so that that code can be used in a neat format, a clear format, so that this can be used everywhere in the organization. So you can consider these 3 in most of the organizations.
Okay. Got that. Thank you.
These are the 3 tools, but I can say that this is 90% of the organizations use this. This is a slightly of 10%. Let's say 9%, and this is 1% CLI for a developers. Okay.
Okay.
And again, it varies for if you are if you go ahead, if you come across with a Linux admins or an admin teams, they use CLI 100%. They will not even touch any of these two.
Okay.
So, but for a developer, user interface needs to be clear. So we will be using these 2 tools. Apart out of that, I have not come across with.
Okay. So the developers, actually the Oracle admins, So they just create a framework to the developer team, right?
Yes,
They are
they set up infrastructure for us so that we can go ahead and like here, if you see here, I am connecting to this database. Okay. So how it is getting connected to this database? That infrastructure will be set up here. If you see here, I'm connecting to this, I have connected to this database. Just it got stuck. I've opened multiple sheets. Okay, see here, it got open. If you see the properties of this database, it is asking me username, it is asking me password, host name, port name, and the service name. So all this information, how it is taking. So if I give random data, it will throw me error. So it will go ahead and check in the database whether this host name is correct or not. It will go ahead and check whether the port name is correct or not, whether the password is correct or not. So this infrastructure will be set up by the admin team. And they will be going, what they will do is they will be connecting to multiple servers. So their main task is to maintain the servers and the infrastructure. So if anything goes wrong, like let's say I'm connecting to this database, okay, and the database is not, it is throwing me error saying that database server is error or anything else. So at that moment, we will be reaching to our admin team, asking for their help or for the resolution. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else apart from this?
No.
Okay, you can raise down your hand. I will be removing the permission. If you raise your hand, I will be giving the permission so that there will not be any disturbances to others. Okay, this is the only reason. There is nothing much. You can raise your hand if anyone has much more clarity. Paul, you can lower down your hand. Any others? As it is a demo session, you can be more interactive. No worries about it. Okay. On this note, let's go ahead. Let's consider no one has doubt. Let's continue with the topics. So yesterday, what we have seen, SQL has most of the commands from this screenshot itself. Okay. Let's get deeper about this today. So along with this, let's go ahead and talk with the concepts, like most of the concepts that we will be covering, and whichever the concepts that we will be coming across organization for any developer. Okay. So today, let's go ahead with these topics. So ignore even if you are at the fresher level, ignore about this. We will be coming, we will be walking through all this SQL developer tool with the step by step, so that it will be free for us and with the clarity, okay, without any doubts. So ignore about this, even if you are not aware how to connect to this worksheet or how to connect to this or how to write over here and execute. Okay. We will be walking through step by step. Okay. So I have written a command over here. So this command is called a TCL command, transactional control language. So if I have to fetch anything from the database, we will be using a command called select star from the table name. Okay. And along with TCL commands, we have a couple of commands like DDL command, DML command, DRL command, TCL or DCL. So what exactly this DDL command is all about? So DDL has a couple of functions like create, alter, rename, truncate, and drop. Okay. So why we will be using this create? Let's say, for example, I have a requirement from the manager or the requirement team saying that create an employee table. So the organization is freshly started. It is a new startup organization. So they have come across asking create a table so that I need to load or I need to insert all the employees data, or else let's say it is a fresh organization which is starting to the customer level organization which is providing service to the customer. So it is asking me create a table for with the name of customers, so that I need to store all my customers data inside this table. So at that moment, we will be using this create command. Okay. So if we have to make any modification, we can alter this. If we have to remove the data or entire data from that table, like I have made any change, I have come across saying that I have to delete the data whichever there, I need to freshly insert again within this table itself. At that moment, instead of deleting that table, we can truncate that table. Okay. Let's say, for example, I have created a table $V parameter. So there can be many tables. Let's consider the $V parameter. So in this table, I have this data, all this data. Okay. So now let's say by mistake, something had happened and the data is not clear. Now a fresh requirement is that I have created a table and the fresh requirement is that I have to delete entire data. So at that moment, we can go ahead and use delete command or truncate command. Let's say a delete, if I have, let's say customers, the requirement manager says that I don't want to reuse entire data. At that time, we can go ahead and truncate. We don't need of this data, right? So we will be truncating this with the help of truncate command. We will be removing an entire data. Okay. So we will walk across so how to use this command in the SQL developer and how to achieve the requirement. But as of now, we are just going through the commands. Okay. So again, we will be discussing in the further sessions in detail. We'll be walking through in detail. This is a just walk through on the high level. I'm just giving an information. So what are the topics that we will be covering? Okay. And also to drop, let's say I need to drop entire table. I don't want to use the table. Then we can go ahead and drop that entire table with that drop command. So this is a DDL data definition language, which whenever we are performing DDL operation, so within this create, alter, rename, truncate, and drop, it will automatically gets committed. Commit is nothing but it will get automatically saved. I don't need to explicitly go ahead and write commit command. It will automatically does that. Whenever you create a table is automatically created. If you need to drop, you can use the drop command. It automatically gets dropped. You don't need to go ahead and explicitly use a save command or commit command. Okay. So this is all about DDL commands. So if we come across DML, data manipulation. So here comes the major topic, like so whenever in the most of the organization, this DML has most weightage. Okay. So creating, like, let's say this organization is way back established organization. So already everything is created. Let's say table is already created and every structure has been created with a well established format. Now I have to insert freshly the new customers, let's say new employees data. At that moment, we will be using insert command. Let's say, for example, while inserting, I have done some mistake. So as a manual error that happens. So if I have I have inserted something which is not of correct format. Let's say, okay, event. Let's say, let me take this small. Instead of event, I have inserted events. Okay. So let's say I have created this $V parameter. Now user has asked you, requirement manager has asked you to insert data with the name of event in this name column. Now you have inserted events. So he's going and checking event. I'm able to see, but you have entered events. It will not fetch any data. So now what happens? What will be the solution for this? The solution will be I need to update this. That's it. So for that moment, we will be using update command. Let's say I have duplicated this data. I have inserted events again by mistake, and events is also there, which has been duplicated with the row. So there are two rows. Whenever he try to execute these events, he is able to see two rows, which is a duplicate data. Let's say, for example, if it is a customer data, that is a sensitive data. If customer data is duplicated, let's say if customer have ordered something, we will be sending same order will be repeated twice. So this is very big impact on the business. So duplicated data needs to be modified, or it needs to be removed. So at that moment, we will be using a delete command, and merge will be merging the data as usual, and data retrieval language. So this is all about DML commands. So DML has whatever the manipulation that we do, we have to explicitly commit the particular transaction. Let's say I have inserted the data. After that operation has been completed, after insert, I have to explicitly go ahead and commit the transaction. Only then it will go ahead and save in the database. Else, it will not be saved. Let's say, for example, there are two developers who are running. Let's say one is inserting the data, other is retrieving the data. Let's say retrieval, let's say he's trying to fetch the data. Okay. For example, here, if you say here, so along with event, he's also trying to insert events data. Let's say events row. Okay. Now, one developer has inserted the data with the name events, and other developer is trying to retrieve the data. On other end, he's trying to fetch the data, check whether the events has been inserted or not correctly. Now, if we check, he will not have any data for visible, because he is doing a DML operation, which he is not committed it. Until and unless he commits, the other developer can view that records. Okay. This is all about DML operation. So DDL will be auto committed. DML will be user committed explicitly. Okay. And data retrieval language, to fetch any type of data from the database, we will be using a DRL, data retrieval language. For this data retrieval language, we will be using select command, select star from the table name. Okay. And transactional control language. So if it is an auto committed, this is an explicitly committed. So for this, if we have to commit anything, we have commit command. If we have to roll back, I have done a transaction, but I need to roll back before commit, I can go ahead and roll back that. So by mistake, let's say I have I have a requirement with file Excel sheet, Excel data 1, and I have Excel data 2. These are my two sheets which I got from my upper team to insert the data. Or let's say I have to process these records, whichever there in Excel data, Excel sheet 1 and Excel sheet 2, either I'm inserting or updating. Okay. So by mistake, I have, instead of processing data sheet 1, I have processed data sheet 2. So now what will be the solution? The solution will be, you have to roll back that particular transaction, roll back that entire particular transaction. Either we have to delete, or we can go ahead and trunk it. These are the options that we have. So whenever any error happen or any mistake happen, we have feasibilities within the database. We have all the possible feasibilities. We can go ahead and modify, or we can go ahead and manipulate the data. Okay. So we will be using rollback command for that particular one scenario. That is one example that I have given. So how we can go, what is the use of rollback? And save point is also kind of commit, let's say if we have 1 lakh records that needs to be processed. So I cannot process 1 lakh records at one go, which will take longer time, which will be the performance impact. So if we have to process at higher speed, we can go ahead and use the save point. Okay. And grant and revoke. Let's say I have, this is all about TCL, transactional control language. You can take a screenshot of this. Everyone, please take a screenshot of this, because this is a basic and most widely used with every organization, which even if you go for an interview, this is the first question that they will be stressing you out. They will be asking questions saying that I have created a table and I have not used a command. What happens? This is how the questions will be. So we have to go ahead and say that TC create is a data definition language which will have auto commit. So we no need to give explicitly commit. So just have a screenshot of this, which will be useful for you in the further. Okay. I hope everyone have taken the screenshot. Everyone is awake, right, guys? Yep, got it. I got the raise hand. You can lower down your hand. Thanks for the confirmation. And data control language. Data control language is used for grant and revoke. Let's say I have created a table and I need to grant permissions to other users or other databases or other objects to other objects. If we have to provide any type of grant, any type of permissions, then we will be using grant. For example, let's say I'm a developer. I have freshly joined one of the organization and I'm trying to use this all tables. So as we know that in Oracle, everything is, most of the thing is restricted due to data privacy. So that cannot be given to all the developers, right? So based on the requirement from the manager, a data access will be given to a couple of developers. So let's say I have freshly joined and I don't have access to these tables. So because my user ID got created recent. So at that moment, what we will do, we will be reaching to our database team to provide a grant on this particular table. So even if you have all the permissions, if you have all the admin rights, you can go ahead and provide the grant permission to other developers. Okay. And the revoke is for reverting the permissions. Let's say you are giving permission on this table to a couple of users, and by chance, if they try to delete, so if you feel that you have to revoke the data, revoke the permission, like I have given a permission to view this table, so that he can go ahead and view this data from this particular table. So I don't want to give the permission because it has a couple of sensitive data. Okay. I don't want to misuse, or I have to restrict this data. At that moment, we will be going and use this revoke command for this particular table, so that they cannot view the data whichever present in this table. So even if they run this table, it will say that no records fetched, or it will give a blank output. Okay. This is all about the entire slide. So small concept, but it will have an impact on our day-to-day lives. So this is the major thing that we have to remember going further. Okay. For every developer. And coming to other topics like DDL, DML, TCL commands. Now let's walk through this sheet. So these are a couple of topics which we will be learning within this course, but we will, based on the time frame, we can go much deeper on this. Okay. I will be explaining one by one slowly. And let's say like I have conditional operators, like how to use a SQL command within our database, like how to use where command, how to fetch the data from our SQL query. Okay, this is about all about conditional operators. Let's say I am trying to fetch the data here from $v parameter. I need to fetch which has row number 10, which has row number 10. At that moment, we will be using conditional operators. If we have to fetch the data in the descending or ascending, we will be using conditional operators. Okay, this is all about conditional operators. We will be digging in much slowly, one by one, but this is on high level that I'm going through. Not to worry about the topics. Okay. So arithmetic operators. Okay, arithmetic operators are arithmetic functions. So if we have to calculate, this will be used mostly for the calculations. Okay, and any of the power, like let's say I have to get the least or minimum or max kind of, let's say max salary if I have to fetch. So I will be using this max command with this max operator. Okay, if I have to fetch the sum of everything, let's say I have to fetch what is the sum of all the employees which has salary. Let's say one employee has 10K, 10,000. Let's say other employee has 20,000. Let's say other employee has 1 lakh. So if I have to get the sum of all the employee salary, then we will be going and using this sum function. Okay. This is all about arithmetic of functions, but we will be walking through other functions as well. I've given just a brief about what exactly arithmetic function is all about. Alias and constraints. So alias is an alias name that we give to a particular table. Let's say I am using $v parameter. I can go ahead and give, instead of $v parameter, I can go ahead and use para. Okay, this is my alias name. Even though I can go ahead and fetch, it will fetch the same data. While using this entire code, let's say I have 10 lines of code. In that 10 lines of code, instead of using $v parameter, I can go ahead and use this para. That's it. This will be the same. It will represent this table. So this table, whatever the data it has, it will be storing all this data within this particular alias name itself. So we will be walking through how we will be using in multiple code in multiple areas with the use of alias names and constraints. So a constraint, like we will be using to give, let's say I have a table. So if I don't have to duplicate the data, so we will be using constraints. Let's say using of duplicate can impact in multiple areas. So at that moment, what we will do, we will be going and using constraint. Let's say I have to give a constraint on this number. Okay, so that a 52 number should not be repeated once again with the 52. At that moment, we will be going and giving a primary constraints as such, not null or anything as such. Okay, based on the requirement. This is all about constraints and views and materialized views. So views we will be using, let's say I have a 10-line code. Let's say I have created, I'm using 10-line code. In that, I'm using 5 tables to join. After joining, I am trying to fetch data. Okay, let's say let's say, for example, within this table itself, I'm trying to use this table, and let's say, for example, it is trying to fetch entire data, whichever it has, what all the columns. Let's say I have to restrict couple of columns. Let's say number, I don't have any issues. Name, I don't have issues. But this type, let's say in the banking system, we are in the banking project. So this type, let's say, for example, this type will be a user ID for example, based on this user ID, they can go ahead and get the password from some other table. At that moment, this is a data breach. So I have to restrict this. So no one needs to see this type. At that moment, for the data restriction or the restriction of columns, we will be going and creating a view for on this particular table. Okay. So on this table, I will be going and creating a view with a different name. Let's say restricted. This is my view. This is my view. So instead of running this, instead of giving this table, I will be giving this table to the users, end users. So they can go ahead and run this. They will have the same data, like restricted data, like number, name, and other, apart from this type. So this is already restricted in this view. Okay. So this is how we use the view, and we will be walking through how to create a view and how to restrict the data, and how to give users more restricted format of the requirement. Okay. And group by and having, we'll be walking through the group by and having. So if we have to group by a data, let's say I have, let's say for example, I have department of 10, department of 20, department of 30. So in this 10th department, I have five customers or 5 employees. So 5 employees I have, let's say department is repeating 5 times. So 5 times the department is repeating, but names are different. Names are repeating. So if I have to, again, like, let's say I have 20th department, the same way I have 20th department. Within this, again, I have a couple of data. So if I have to fetch data by grouping 10th department, then we will be using group by clause. So based on group by, we can distinguish the 10th department and 20th department and fetch the data. So this is where we can go ahead and use. This is where we can go ahead and use our group by clause. Okay. And operators, set operators, like union, joining of, let's say I have created 2 SQL queries, which is having of let's say 10 lines of code in one SQL query and 10 lines of code in an second SQL query. If I have to join it and fetch the data, if both are having the same column names, if I have to fetch the data from this both the queries, then I can go ahead and use the union command. Okay. And synonym sequences. Synonyms are used just like an alias names for a table, just like a view itself, but a different usage will be different. And sequence, let's say I have a requirement. Let's say, for example, here itself, I have a requirement. I will need to create a department names in the sequential format. I don't want to increase it, like I need to increase it one by one without any duplicates. So at that moment, what I will do is that I will create a sequence. I will be going and using that sequence over here. So it will increase, let's say it starts with 1. So I don't need to create a new, I don't need to give input as 2 again. I can go ahead and use that sequence number, sequence name. Let's say, for example, sequence name is sequence name is sequence _1. Okay. That sequence _1, I can go ahead and use over here. Let's say, let's take over here. 1, number 2, row number 3. Instead of giving this manually, I can go ahead and use a sequence number, a sequence name. By creating a sequence, it will automatically create the increasing uh, numbers. Okay, this is where we will be going and using the sequence. And joins, to join multiple tables, subqueries. So if we are using 5 or 6 tables, so if I have to join those tables and fetch the data, at that moment we will be joining, we will be using joins commands and we will be fetching the data. So subqueries, like instead of we have written a query, I have written a query where I am, let's say for example, I have written this query where I am saying that name is equal to events. I know that this is, I know I need to pass events. If I don't know what to be passed over here, so I have it some other table which will give me events as an input. So at that moment, what I will go ahead and do is I will be writing a subquery over here again, saying that I know that that events column data is present in new table. Okay, where, so let's say this is my not to give from over here. Okay, so here this new table has a data of events. So at that moment, let's say the column name is name. Okay, so this, within this table I have a data of event, so that when I run this query, it is giving me event output, one column with one record event. So at that moment, what I will do is that I will give I will try to write a subquery from this table. Whatever the valid records are there from this table, whatever the valid records are there, it will be passed into this table, and matching records will be giving us an output for us. For example, how we have seen where name is equal to events, right? So every character or any word, if it is there, we have to enclose with a single quote. Okay, only then it will try to fetch the data. So if I try to run like this, it will not give me. So it is saying that event is an invalid identifier. Okay, any word, any character needs to be enclosed with a single quote. Okay, so inline views, indexes, and cascade case and decode. We will be walking through all this. As we have only 10 minutes left, what we can do is that we can go ahead with the query sessions. Let's say you can go ahead and ask any questions. Let's continue. Like yesterday, it was my mistake that I have dragged it till the end of the timeline. So after that, I couldn't schedule a meeting. Okay, so let's stop for the here. Tomorrow, let's go with other topics. But these are high level. Okay, we will be walking through much. Tomorrow we will be going through the PL SQL concepts, why we will be using PL SQL, and what are the then we will be using what are the how we need to use a PL SQL within our database. Okay, today let's stop for here. This is a high level of SQL topics. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand and we can continue. Yes, Paul.
Yes, my question probably it's not a deeper into this one, but I just would like to know. So this DB team always work with the developer team. They both in the I'm asking the industrial based. They like when there is a new project is coming, so they have this meeting and the project manager and the developer team and the SQL team, they have the meeting and they are finding how they are going to implement particular project, that will happen, or how come the industry will works.
So we will be developers will have a different team, and the database team, DBA team will have a separate, okay, separate team. Their manager will be different, or our developer manager will be different. But if
Okay.
they, if it is a single manager for DBA or and developers, then they will be also joining with the same within the same meeting itself, and we will be discussing. So, or else like DBA team will be different and developer team will be different. Only if I have any issues with the infrastructure or database connectivity, then we will be asking that particular team person to join within our meeting, and we will be discussing within that topic. So that's it.
Okay. If there is a project and this is a table name and this is going to be these many parameters,
Mhm.
and if you want to design the database, there will be
Okay.
some requirement like these many tables and
Yes.
there. So you will. So how come that will decide? And that's a requirement that comes to the DB admin from the developer teams.
No, their requirement will be different, because if I have to create a table, so developer will not have any idea how to create a table and how to insert a table, right?
Yeah.
Their
Mhm.
task is just to create infrastructure and maintain that server. That's it. So they will not be they will not be involving much. So developer will needs to involve. So manager, our manager will be providing all the requirement to us. Like manager will be discussing to the users or the person who will be giving requirement, and he will collect all the information. And yes.